So sorry, my computer is a bit slow today. Let's see. I don't know what's going wrong. One moment, please. I'll try it like this, one moment. I am so sorry, people. My computer is not cooperating today. Okay, everyone, I suggest we take a quick 5-minute break. I'm going to ask for some technical support, and let's hope we will be back here at 3 o'clock. I'm sorry for the inconvenience.
Hello.
Hi, Marina. Sorry, I asked you here.
Are you having a problem?
Yes, I can't seem to be able to share Brigitta's video.
But I don't have that video, I guess. So, yeah.
Yeah, somehow when I share my screen and I can click anything, either the desktop or the Windows Media Player, it just doesn't open.
But then can she do it herself on her own?
Brigitte, could you try perhaps?
We have tried it the rehearsal, but it's not going with the audio.
Okay, what you can try, I had the same problem, is if you click on the share content button on the top right, then you get this pop-up menu, and at the top left of that menu it has like this switch that says include computer sound. If you turn that one on, I think the audio should be working.
Okay. Just a second.
I see Anne joined us as well. Welcome, Anne.
And we cannot hear you because you're mute.
It's unmuted.
Yes, quite the echo.
You have to log out in one of your profiles, because I see two screens with you. Yes, I think now I see only one screen with you.
You have seen the video?
No?
No, not yet.
Okay.
Whose video are we trying to share now?
Brigitte.
Yeah, I try. Just a second.
I'll keep trying at the same time. Maybe if I just restart
just
it.
a second. Oh yeah. Ah nee, was ist jetzt?
So I'm ready to share it myself now.
Okay.
That's it. Yes. 1 second.
Yeah, great.
It's working.
Perfect.
Yeah, perfect.
Finally.
Thank you.
Mein Ex-Partner stalkt mich. Aber jetzt...
Jetzt ist der Ton vorbei.
I don't hear anything anymore.
No.
App
I think it's because you're on mute, Marina.
können Sie sich ganz einfach auf Ihr Smartphone laden. Mit Ihrer ersten Anmeldung erstellen Sie Ihren persönlichen Zugang und erhalten einen individuellen Codeschlüssel. Dieser Code ist bei Verlust nicht wiederherstellbar. Mit einem Klick starten Sie die sofortige Videoaufnahme, Audioaufnahme und Fotoaufnahme. Zu jeder Aufnahme können Sie Kommentare ergänzen wie und weitere relevante Informationen. Hier können Sie Mediendateien aus anderen Anwendungen importieren sowie Textberichte verfassen. Der Hilfe-Button bietet die Möglichkeit, einen Polizeinotruf abzusetzen, das Opfertelefon des Weißen Rings zu kontaktieren oder eine Info-SMS an eine hinterlegte Telefonnummer zu schicken. Drücken Sie in Notsituationen den Alarmton-Button, um mit einem schrillen Ton auf sich aufmerksam zu machen. Mit der No-Stalk-App können Sie sich sicher sein, dass Ihre Daten vor dem Zugriff fremder Personen geschützt sind. Ihre Aufnahmen werden im Smartphone verschlüsselt und sofort in ein sicheres Rechenzentrum in Deutschland übertragen. Die Daten verbleiben nicht auf dem Smartphone, sondern werden in Form einer Historie in der No-Stalk-App erfasst. Die Dateien sind im geschützten Login-Bereich der Webseite www.nostalk.de nur über Ihren persönlichen Codeschlüssel abrufbar, den Sie bei der Anmeldung erhalten und sicher aufbewahrt haben. Als zusätzliche Sicherungsmaßnahme wird eine 6-stellige PIN abgefragt. Diese PIN ist für jedes Benutzerkonto individuell, unbegrenzt gültig und in allen Außenstellen des Weißen Rings erhältlich. Nun können Sie die Daten gesammelt herunterladen oder nur einen bestimmten Zeitraum auswählen. Die No-Stalk-App unterstützt Sie dabei, rechtliche Maßnahmen zu ergreifen und aktiv mit Polizei und Justiz zusammenzuarbeiten.
Dank der No-Stalk-App habe ich mein Leben wieder. Ich bin echt erleichtert.
Thank you, Brigitte.
Okay, thank you.
Would you like to add anything to that video, or?
No.
Okay, then I suggest we quickly move on to our next speaker, Anne Moltz from Action Against Stalking. Do you have your own presentation, Anne, or would you like me to share it?
You can share it.
Okay, let me see if it works this time. There we go. Can you see it?
That's us. Yes, thank you. Yes. And good afternoon, everyone. Delighted to be speaking at the Victim Support Europe National Conference today. I'm going to talk about our new Through Care Stalking Victim Support model, which involves an app and the digitalisation of the only resource of its kind called the Stalking Victim Impact Box. And this started off as a, next slide, please. And this started off as a box. What it covers within this box is actually a psychoeducational, police investigative, victim support hard copy of 3 booklets that would actually empower victims to provide all the information about stalking, what is stalking, crime, how to report a crime, expectations of the system, how to log events, how to develop a safety action plan. And these boxes were given out to victims. We enrolled over 4,500 across different services in Scotland. It was the only one of its kind. We then received funding from the government to put the box into a digitalised format that would connect via an app. And that's what I'll talk about, what the process of this is and how we've integrated this. It's just a stalking app where victims can record incidents of stalking and report to the police. It actually takes them direct to our support system. So what our aim is we want victims to connect with us as soon as they find out that they are experiencing stalking behaviours by accessing this app. It directs them straight into our system, and from that we can support that victim from the very start of the process, right through, be it reporting to the police, helping them log their incidents, helping them develop the safety action plan. We can risk assess of the victim's journey stalking, and we can work with the victim throughout the court trial should the case go to a prosecution. Next slide, please. So when we're looking at stalking, we introduced the legislation into Scotland in 2010, and our most recent Scottish Criminal Justice Survey figures actually state that 11.1% of adults experience at least one form of stalking and harassment within a 12-month period. And gender difference, there's very little gender difference. What we're starting to find with this new recording is that men are being stalked the same as women are being stalked, with very little difference. But because of technological advancement, a lot of that stalking is moving online. And over the COVID lockdown, we have experienced over 30% increase in victims reporting cyberstalking and asking for help. But what's been quite interesting out these figures is that actually 50% of those who reported being stalked did not know. So we're starting to see new statistics coming out about not just stalking, but acquaintance stalking, and we're also starting to see more victims reporting being the victim of a stranger stalker, which is quite interesting. Because these are two typologies that were not really being recognised properly before. It was mainly stalking had become synonymous with domestic abuse, but we always knew these other victims were out there. Next slide, please. Some reports about stalking, you know, they're confused, they're catapulted into a world of confusion. Something is happening in their life that they don't know how to manage, how to control, they don't know how to stop it. And what we always hear from victims is the different domains of risk. What's going to happen to me? No one can say, where am I in? Listen, we have victims who are reported to the police and not receiving a good response from the police. They're already being secondary traumatised by reporting to the police, and they become even more anxious, more scared. And it's that feeling of helplessness, the loss of control. They feel that they have nowhere else to go. And we really don't want victims to get to that stage where they report to the police and they do not get a good response. We want to support them before they report to the police and to ensure that they do get a good response, because we will help advocate for that good response, because we also work very closely with the police and the Crown Office. So the Victim Impact Box actually is that interface between the victim and the system. It bridges the gap between the two, and we are mediators in helping bridge that gap and to provide the victim with an appropriate response. Because the three domains of risk is what's going to happen to me. Am I going to be physically hurt or violently attacked? And how long will this go on for? We're not just looking at those stalking victims who are fearful of physical harm. We're looking at the long protracted stalking cases, but the stalker may never ever decide that they're going to commit to physical violence, but they are tenacious in their behaviours, and it's the drip effect, the psychological impact on the case that actually create or cause anxiety, poor sleep, etc. in the victim. The other question that victims ask is, what happens if it reoccurs? If the stalking stops, will it start again, and what happens if it starts? So we want to be able to answer those questions very quickly and be supportive to the victim before they get to that stage. Next one, please. Because what we do know is that although a third of all stalkers do regress to physical, it's a very high forensic sample. Even higher and more significant clinical sample is the psychological and emotional impact on victims. We're looking at symptoms of PTSD. Over 50 robust research from different research studies consistently highlight that over 55% of victims of stalking go on to suffer symptoms of PTSD, increased anxiety arousal, chronic sleep disturbance, excessive tiredness, weakness, headaches. Some of them depend on alcohol, increased cigarette use. We're seeing those harmful behaviours, and in some cases we are seeing suicidal idealisation, where victims really are getting to that stage where they're not coping any longer. Next slide, please. And so that's what brought me to develop this Victim Impact Box. We wanted a self-help toolkit to help empower victims, help their situation better, understand their situation, and not just explain how. A focus on the how and not why it's happening. Give them a set of tools, and we integrated into this toolkit a set of CBT self-help principles to help victims manage their anxiety, how to manage not responding to the fear response, to become more of their own advocate, how to log in, how to develop their safety action plan. So this toolkit became an interface between the victim system. It's a multifunctional device for victims. It bridges the gap. So it's a process. It's a process that we can support the victim to the beginning of the crime, and we really want to help that victim make sense of their experience, because victims become confused, don't understand what's happening to them. Some the other ones that are going off their head. And what we find is that victims put an inordinate amount of time trying to explain to others that they are the ones that are being stalked. They are fearful and they are frightened. And secondary victimization comes in, that victim's not being believed, when that victim's not been heard, or their fears are not being taken seriously. So this is a structured approach to working with victims of stalking. And what we are hoping for, it is a standardised approach across all services, and using CP, cognitive behavioural therapy, self-help model, but actually helping them develop skills, lifelong skills that they will be able to use across other situations. Next slide, please. So what is the digitalised version of the Impact Box? It's everything they need to know about stalking, what constitutes the crime. It's the law on stalking, help them understand what the law says about stalking. Because the Scottish legislation is a very simple piece of legislation, it's written in layman's terms, not just for criminal justice officials to work with as a legal framework, but when that legislation was introduced into Scottish criminal law, I wanted that piece of legislation to be written in layman's terms so that victims of stalking could also understand what was happening to them, how the law stood on stalking. And many a time when a victim contacted me trying to work out if they were being stalked, I would send them this piece of legislation. They would then go down to the police station and say, look, this is what's happening to me. So the box explains the legislation in very simple terms. It describes the different types of stalkers to help that victim understand what type of stalker it is they might be experiencing, what to expect from that type of stalker, to help them identify the wide range of behaviours that they may be experiencing, because what we want to do is normalise that experience, that this is stalking, those flowers that are being sent to you, the text message, unwanted, persistent, all constitute what the crime of stalking. And most importantly, we want to identify the impact this is having on the victim's life. Victims often feel that they're lost, they've been catapulted into another world of reality. And by helping the victim life, about fear, then they're helping recognise that they're not the ones that are they're not the ones that are overreacting. They actually are reacting appropriately to what is an external threat and an external threat, stressor. And what we try and deliver that message through this Victim Impact Box is that becoming the victim of a stalker is not your fault. It's a problem that you've been landed with, but it is their responsibility how they're going to choose to deal with it. And that's what the box is about. It's about giving responsibility back to the victim, control. that they actually have some empowerment in how they are going to deal with this, because we will support them in that empowerment. Next slide, please.
Anne, I'm sorry to interrupt you, but I have big difficulties to hear it. There is, I think, very weak connection. Iris, can you hear me?
Can you hear me?
Yes.
Yes.
Somehow my screen has frozen and no matter what I do, it doesn't go to the next slide.
What problem is that? Is it your connection, Iris, or is it Anne's problem?
I think it's Anne's, because I also don't hear Anne very well. Do you see the next slide now?
Yes.
I see it.
Okay. Okay. Yeah.
But the sound is horrible. It's very hard to follow the presentation, unfortunately. Maybe I don't know what to do now in the middle of the presentation. Maybe it's better to disconnect and to connect one more time.
Shall we do that?
Yes, I think so. Let's just lose 1 minute, but then maybe the sound will be better.
Will I just come out of Teams completely and go back in again?
Yes, let's try that. I'm sorry.
Don't worry.
Should I just leave the presentation here?
Yeah.
Okay. Such a shame. Like, everything that could go wrong has gone wrong so far.
Hello.
Hello.
Can you hear me better now?
Yes.
Yes.
That's unbelievable. I should have done it much earlier. Okay, let's continue.
Well, I just take off where I went, where we started. Just continue.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Okay, so we're talking about the victim impact box. So what is this? So the first part of this box is all you need to know, all you need. So the second part is all you need to do. So what we want is the victim to connect with us, to access this through, they can access it through their app, they can access it through our free phone number, they can access it through our website, and that takes them directly into our victim support service. Okay, they can also report to the police themselves if they want, but if they come under our banner first, if we can engage with them through the whole process of the stalking experiencing, from logging everything to and supporting them while they report to the police, support them while they build their evidence, and all this stuff online, because this is an online app that allows them to do that and brings them into direct contact with one of our support workers. So we will help them record incidents and develop the safety action plan, because what we can't do, it's very difficult to quantify fear. Fear is a subjective response. So what we want them to do is, in response to the behaviours, is develop their safety action plan. What we're saying is, have a plan, be proactive, have a plan in place, because we want that victim to try and still have a normal life where possible, but have their plan in place. So the two work together, the safety action plan and the incident safety log work together. And then they can use the CBT self-help, which is development of anxiety reduction techniques. Now, our support worker will help with that. It's guided self-help. It will identify some of the victims may be in a helpful thinking patterns, because what we have realised is that some victims, in response to the stalker's incidents, maybe don't always react helpfully to themselves. Maybe they shut themselves inside the house, draw the curtains, or they'll engage in behavioural patterns that are not helpful, that are feeding into the fear response. And that's what we don't want, because that's having a greater impact. We're shifting from problem solving to a solution focused way of thinking. We want the victim to come out of the responding to the fear response, to engage more with the cognitive, and what do I need to do to deal with this? How do I manage this? How will I develop my plan to help them feel empowered and more in control? And this toolkit will help them do that, and them also being supported. And these increased feelings of control, sense of autonomy, and it fosters that personal responsibility, because they feel that they're now more in charge of what's happening to them. And they have the support to do that. They're also going to manage and process some of the feelings, because what we want them to do as the victims working through the Victim Impact Box, what they're doing is they're providing a narrative of what's happening to them. They are making sense of the experience. They're building a story and a script that makes sense to them, which is very empowering for a victim, because we want to take them out of that confusing what's going to happen to me. We can't take away risk completely. We can't stop impact, but what we can try and do is reduce the impact on the victim, especially if that stalking is going to go on for a long time. We will help them engage with the police, to report to the police. They can upload their files, they can upload photographs, they can upload their incidences. Everything is going online. They're allocated a file online that's held in a secure server by us. That is their file where they gather all their evidence. And at any point, they can allow the police to download all that information during the investigation of their case. Because we're helping the victim develop more positive coping strategies, we're actually reducing the impact on that victim's life and them feel actually they're in more control. And that's empowering for the victim, because we're trying to reduce the long-term impact and stop the development, what could be the potential development of post-traumatic stress symptoms at a later date. Next slide, please. So when the resource book, this is the last part of it, this is where the victim enters the incidences, the date, the time, what's happened, everything they need to know to hand to the police, all done chronologically in a manner that makes sense. And it allows our support workers, our victim support workers, to keep an eye on what's happening with these behaviours. You know, what's happening, when do the behaviours change, what types of behaviour is this stalker engaging in. We can actually quickly identify when there's an escalation of behaviours, where there's more inferred threats, frequency of the behaviours, and the police can also do that because it's all being logged in such a chronological manner that it's making sense. It's evidencing the course of conduct over time. And the safety development plan, which is all done online with the support worker, can also be accessed by the police as well. And it's looking at the priority areas of concern. What is the disruption in this victim's life? That is an objective measure of impact. What has changed in this victim's life, and what are they having to change to help keep themselves safe and manage the stalker's behaviour? It provides for a description of the problem, and it also helps the victim and the police know what has the victim done to help themselves, who have they contacted, who are they in contact with, what is the action that they have taken to keep them safe. And we can monitor that with the victim. We're watching their response, we're helping them identify if maybe some of their responses might increase the danger that they're in or not be helpful to their mental health, and we can work with that victim to change that response into something a bit more positive. So we're walking beside the victim all and helping them manage the situation, helping them manage, work with the police, engage. Next, please. So this takes a bit, and so because we're connected through our app, through mobile phones, through our website, through our free phone helpline number, we can be there immediately at that victim for support. It's a one-stop shop. We can give them all the advice and the support. We can conduct risk assessment. We can help them manage the response to the stalker. They have access to the Victim Impact Box online. So we can conduct that ongoing risk assessment if any fears, concerns. We can support them in reporting. Then we have all the information to actually approach the police ourselves and ask for that case to be reviewed in some way or to be looked at again. We can support the victim from the beginning to the end. We can identify where there are secondary victims, and especially in supporting victims of cross-jurisdictional stalking, because this app is going to be available online through our website, so anyone will be able to access it. And because it's a one-stop shop, if there's another support service that we feel would be more appropriate to that victim, then we can refer that victim on to other organisations like the to are reporting crimes from other countries, and we can make sure that we follow up on those actions so no victims falls through the net at all, and we can work with the police to. Next slide, please. Into our action against stalking, access it from our free phone number, from our website. It systematically connects police prosecution services. If need be, we can escalate that case on behalf of the victim. We can recover that case on behalf of the victim, and we can also support system signposting to other states where needed. So it is a one-stop shop app. Next slide, please. Because what we do know is that why do we can assist them with that and how they respond to the stalker. We can manage their expectations of the system. We can make sure they take adequate safety precautions, enlisting the correct type of support, and make sure that we support their emotional needs. And when it comes to the system, help the police to engage with that victim, to we can allow them access to the information of happening to that victim, and make sure the police really understand what is going on, that we are working closely with that victim so we can be part of that interface system. Next slide, please. So what are the benefits of it? Well, what we're doing is a joined up and consistent approach. It's an interface between the victim and the system. It's consistent, it standardises working with victims, which we hope will go across different agencies. It's the development of positive engagements. We're giving these victims a proactive role in managing their own case. We're just providing that holding to allow that to happen. We can identify those early stalking behaviours, we can identify patterns of risk, patterns of behaviour, escalation, risk indicators, escalation points. We can assist with threat assessment and reduction strategies. And these are all crucial evidence we can provide. That victim impact box can provide the crucial evidence. Everything's there for the police to take forward their prosecutions. And it also identifies the impact on the victim, which is the gravamen of this offence, the stalking offence, and it allows us to quickly signpost to other services where required at an early stage. Next slide, please. And what are the benefits to the prosecution service? Well, it's the dissemination of information, right from the victim, right down through to the police, right down to the prosecution services and through to the courts. It's accurate, chronically ordered information, and it's evidence that can be cross-referenced. It's a timeline of events of the developing patterns of behaviour, risk indicators, and also the disruption of the victim's life. And that's very helpful when it comes to defining a crime that's the impact on the victim and not on the behaviours per se. We need the courts to understand what stalking is, and it's the devastating impact it has on the victim's life, the seriousness of the offence more than the behaviours per se. So we've already got the victim track, producing their own victim impact statement along the way, without having to sit down and try and do that on their own. We're recognising victim vulnerabilities, that we can support these at an early stage. And what we hope to do is have victims being able to stand in court feeling more empowered, feeling a bit stronger, that they're able to stand as a credible witness, and having and going through the process using the victim impact box will aid the memory recall of events. And we do not want victims to feel overwhelmed when they go to court. Having a victim that can be a good witness, feel able to stand as a witness, is very empowering. They can walk out of that court and say, do you know, I felt I did very well, rather than feeling upset, traumatised and highly anxious. Next slide, please. So it's a joined up, consistent approach. It's structured and guided approach to supporting victims. It's case formulation, case management, risk identifier. It identifies the area where real support is needed. We're on doing the assessment of victims' needs at the same time. We can disseminate that information down to the police, across to the prosecution services. We can systematically signpost victims to other services where appropriate. It's the access and sharing of accurate information and identification, assessment of vulnerability factors of that victim, and all in all, we're building healthy working relationships right across the board. Next slide, please. And so these are the benefits. And of course, when we conducted trials using this victim impact box, then the feedback has been tremendous. It's made them feel more in control. Other victims have said that they didn't realise what was happening to them properly until they worked with this box. We do employ qualified professionals. We've got a psychiatric mental health nurse, highly qualified. She's also a cognitive behavioural therapist who works with victims. We have a clinical psychologist on board. If we have victims who are psychologically traumatised, more high-end cases, we can refer them on to that. So we are providing professional, qualified support for our victims, and we're using this toolbox most of the time. And for the victims, it really makes a difference. They feel they have some power, some control. They feel able to engage with the police. They don't feel passive, helpless. And they can build that story for themselves. For the first time, they can make sense of what's happening in their world. And what we're going is like myself, when I was a victim of stalking, we want to see those people who are falling victims to stalking to become survivors and thrivers, so that they can get back on with their life again, so they can still perform at work. and not be too badly damaged by this crime. Next slide, please. So that's who we are. There's more information on our website, www.actionagainstalking.org. That is the Victim Impact Box. It's a digitalised version. It's there for the support of victims. The feedback is excellent, and we're hoping to unroll this further as a more standardised approach of working with victims. It's different from an app where victims can app and put in their log their incidences or upload their files. This does all that as well, but it also takes them into a process of engaging with support, so they're never having to face being stalked on their own. Thank you. Is there any question anyone might have? Just aware of the time.
No questions so far, it seems.
So far, okay. That's good.
Maybe later on when we start a Q&A. I suggest we immediately continue with Yvonne and Martin's presentation. Do you start with the video?
Yeah, it's all actually one. We've pre-recorded all of it, so it's all in
Okay.
one. So.
Okay, let me try to pull it up.
So yeah, just to say, it's going to start with kind of an animation explainer to my support space, and then it'll move on to Martin's presentation.
Okay, perfect.
So I'll switch my video off so as not to confuse you all by being here twice.
Okay, let's see. I seem to be experiencing the same problem I had with Brigitta's presentation. Marina, do you have this one as well, this video?
No, Iris, I don't have the video.
Okay, let me see. No, somehow my laptop decided not to share any videos today. Marina, I will send you an email and attach the video, so maybe then you can share it.
It's a really large file, so I don't know if you'll be able to email it over. That's the problem.
Oh, shame. Okay, let's see.
I'll try and upload it here, but I don't. It's just such a big file. I'm not sure if you'll be able to do it in time.
In the meantime, I'll keep trying.
Oh, it doesn't allow me to upload actually, so it's not letting me.
Can you log out and log in, then back maybe, Iris? I don't understand what's the problem.
Yeah, I'll try. See you in a bit.
Thank you.
Okay, let me try again.
It works.
Ah.
Actually, I don't know who is sharing what.
This is Yvonne, I think.
Are you sharing your screen, Iris?
No, this is Yvonne's screen.
So can you try it?
I'll try. Let's see.
Do that.
Can you see it?
Yes. So
okay.
Can you continue, please?
My Support Space. Victim Support's secure online platform for people affected by crime. My Support Space is designed to help you, whatever your experience. Crime often disrupts everyday life. Everyone reacts differently, but it's common not to feel yourself, and it can seem like there's more to cope with. You may not want to, or be ready to, speak to someone to get support, and that's okay. My Support Space is personalised to you with help across a range of issues you may experience after crime, including sleeplessness, not feeling safe, or if you're struggling to cope. Our simple online guides feature videos and animations, practical information, hints and tips, and reflective exercises which can help you find ways to cope and move forward. You can work through them at your own pace on your phone, tablet, or desktop. Keeping a journal or diary can help you in your recovery. In My Support Space, you can create your own online diary to track your progress and record your thoughts about what's happened. Moving forward after crime isn't always easy, and there can be setbacks. The support you want or need may change over time. My Support Space allows you to add, remove, or revisit support guides whenever you need to. My Support Space is here for you. Are you ready to move forward?
Hi, my name is Martin Herwood, Director of Support Services for Victim Support in England and Wales. You've just seen our animation, which introduces My Support Space, a new secure online platform for people affected by crime. I'm going to talk you through how and why we developed the site, and then we're going to do a walkthrough of the site itself. So in terms of what is My Support Space, it's an online resource, and we've designed it to help people manage the impact that crime has had on them. Clients work through a series of interactive guides which address their specific needs, and the content on the site is designed to help people think about and reflect on their own feelings and understand how they can support themselves. The interactive guides that we've built in feature videos, techniques, tips, activities to explore each topic, and we've also included an online diary which helps clients keep track of their progress and to record activities that they found helpful. In terms of why the site's needed, we had found from research that we'd done that some victims who hadn't accessed support didn't feel that they wanted or needed caseworker contact. Many people who experience crime say their journey is not linear, and they wanted support to be available at any time, in any place, and in a less formal format. And I think what came through was the need for online support when a person wants it and how they want it. And we really identified the ability that people wanted to be able to self-serve. That said, people also told us they wanted information tailored to their own personal needs. So we knew that we needed to develop something that was more than a standard website. I think also it's worth mentioning that we were developing this with the intention of launch in April 2020. And of course, just before that, the global pandemic began. And in mid-March for England, lockdown began. And so it was really timely for us, coincidentally, to be able to launch a self-help resource. Just at a time, I think it was really useful to be able to make that available. In terms of how the site works, when users sign up, they get a free secure account. We've designed it so that people don't have to give much information to begin with. They don't need to give their real name. We don't ask for gender or age. And the idea behind that is that the more information we're asking for, the greater barrier it presents to somebody accessing the site and signing up. So really minimal information is to encourage people to use the site and to proceed through the login process. One of the things we do ask for, though, is we ask users to select what they need help with, and a number of interactive guides are selected for them based on what they say, which they then see as they go into the site. We also ask people to identify what area of England and Wales they're from. That enables us to be able to do reports to show where people are accessing the service from, which is useful both for our information and for reporting to individual commissioners who may be providing some funds to help us develop the site. So what we'll do now is we'll have a look at My Support Space and we'll have a walkthrough of the site. So looking at the trauma guide, firstly, you can see we have the introduction. Now, all the guides have a similar layout, and that means that the site can quickly feel familiar to users. Guides take about 15 minutes to complete, and we've deliberately designed the content with a bite-sized approach. The idea is that completing a guide isn't too long a commitment, and we reduce the chances of people switching off halfway through. Every guide has an introduction, and that gives an overview of what to expect. Here, you can see that we have given a summary of what trauma is and how a person might be affected by it. We also, in the introduction, use the grey box, and the grey box has a quote or a story from somebody who's got relevant experience of the crime. Now, we know normalization is important, and the idea of the grey box is to show to the user that they're not alone in their experience and the impact of the crime can be common, and so the story and the quote reflect this. We also use a red box across the site, and we're clear that My Support Space isn't supported and that service users work through it themselves without sitting next to a caseworker. The idea of the red box is to flag further sources of support. So if people feel severely affected, they're able to, they can see a suggestion to either call GP or call our victim support line or contact another organisation. We also flagged that in an emergency to call 999. We also, on the page and going across all of the pages, we have a live chat option, which is embedded, so that if somebody wants immediate support, they can click on live chat. This will open a box, and that box will connect to our live chat service, which is available through our national support line, which runs from Wales. And clicking on the live chat box opens up the window. Function and the live chat service is available 24 hours a day and is available to all people across England and Wales. So a really important function that we've built into the site. You can see there the entrance box to live chat. So turning to the next page on the trauma guide. Here we talk about the common effects of trauma. So we set out how trauma may make you feel or how it might make you think or act. In terms of style, you'll see that we don't include lots of text, and the words that we've got are all broken up with headings. The idea behind this approach is to stick with those short pieces of information, which is easier to read and to take in. We're deliberately trying to avoid a complex loop to the page. The next section of the guide talks about how trauma affects the brain, and through the site we use images, as you can see here, to represent and explain concepts to distinguish parts of the brain. And we're using images on the site because people have different learning styles, so the aim is to give a choice of video, visual and text-based options, so people can take information in different ways that suit them. We also have a short video on this page, and we use short videos and animations through the guide to explain key concepts. So this video covers the brain response to trauma. Underneath each video or animation, we also have an option to click the video transcript. And again, that's an accessibility option. So if people find it easier to read or to watch than to watch, then they're able to do so. In section 3, we have a section on helping yourself, and this section really we're trying to make guides feel like a personalized journey. So that means that people can skip content if they feel it's not relevant to them, but it also means that we built in questions and answers with the site. So the idea being that a user can go through the information in a way that's relevant to them, and it makes it a little bit more interactive. So you can see there's questions here talking about unhelpful thoughts, and depending on the answer that the user gives to the question, they'll get a different response. We have also included on this page some free text questions at the end. So we say, think of an example of an unhelpful thought you've had recently, and then the 3 challenges. What evidence contradicts this? What are the costs of thinking this way? Is there another way of looking at this situation? And the idea really is that one of the premises of My Support Space is that it has space for self-reflection. And so as a response to trauma, the user here can think about unhelpful thoughts and reflect on their experience. And it ends with a rational assessment, writing down your balanced assessment of the situation. The next section is headed Using Your Times Positively, and here in the design we've talked about, we've used tick boxes, and the idea really is about giving an interactive feel, so people are participating in the guide rather than just passively reading it. So this section talks about if you're feeling less motivated than you were before, then think of some activities that you'd like to include in your week, and you can go through and click things that you think may be useful to you. We also have a green box here with a top tip in. And we've used, again, green box through the site to draw users' attention to key information and to give reassurance on key points. So the top tip here is don't worry if unexpected things come up and you can't stick to the plan, you can be flexible. Section 5 for the trauma guide, we have on deep breathing. So here we're using a short video, and this video is about 36 seconds long. And it shows the importance of deep breathing and how it can be used when feeling overwhelmed. And again, this is about giving a different form of learning rather than just the written word. And again, for people who prefer to read, we have the option to see the video transcript instead. And finally, in our guides, we end with useful resources. We have a number of links which a user might find useful. Conscious that we're using the guides to give bite-sized information, if people want more information, this is where they can work through to find a whole bunch of resources for further reading or for further information. Once the user has worked through that and clicked on next, they get the congratulations sign up, which says you've finished the guide. So they know that they're at the end of the guide that they've worked through. We do mention here that feedback helps us to improve the site, and when you click on OK, you then look at the bottom of the page and you can indicate, did you find this guide helpful or not helpful? When we click on not helpful, there's a box that says, would you care to offer feedback? And there's a free text box for users to say what they're thinking. They can either send the feedback in or they can skip that if they want to. And if they skip it, they return to the guides page. Now, also on the site, we have the diary function. And again, this is part of the reflective approach. So, for instance, if a user has done the sleep guide, they might want to journal the work they did on that, record their thoughts through diary entries. And these are saved and people can go back and think about how they're recovering. We now have a short video which will explain more on how My Support Space is being used by our caseworkers and by our service users.
We've run several rounds of workshops with service users to get their feedback and to help us develop My Support Space. And the feedback has been overwhelmingly positive. Users really liked the simplicity and interactivity of My Support Space. They also liked that it felt tailored and relevant to them and to their experience of crime. For others who needed more help, it was a doorway to further support, either through the live chat service that they can access within My Support Space, or by contacting their local service, or our free national support line number, or by following up on the useful resources that are listed at the end of each of the guides. Our staff have also fed back that the resource is proving extremely useful to them at the moment because of the current COVID-19 pandemic. It's allowed staff to support service users and signpost them when there's been a delay in being able to speak to them. And it's also facilitated people continuing their recovery journey in between their sessions with their caseworker.
Thank you for that lovely presentation. I suggest we immediately continue into our Q&A, which will be moderated by Anne Moltz. Just a few technicalities. People who are not speaking, please mute your microphone, and depending on the amount of questions we get, I suggest you ask any questions in the chat box so we can answer them one by one. Go ahead.
Can I start? I do have a question from Keisha was asking when we're looking at stalking apps, can everyone hear me all right? Are we all right with sound? Do similar tools such as stalking documentation apps for victims exist in other European countries? Brigitte said, I know of 2 other countries, Denmark and Italy. Denmark has the app Skytingel, which is about direct notification of contacts and dangerous situations. And there's also a law which stalking victims can document all attempts of contact. Italy has My Tutela, and that was launched last year. That records and archives SMS messages, WhatsApp, emails, photographs, phone calls from a telephone number. The only other one that I can think of, Brigitte, is there has been another one here developed by the Scottish Women's Rights Centre called Follow It. And that's basically, it's a stalking app that can be downloaded onto the mobile phone, obviously. And it's an incident log, basically, and that app allows the uploading of photographs or text messages, anything that requires recording for gathering of evidence, and that is stored in a secure server that the victim can allow the police to access once the victim's ready to report or the police is taking forward their investigations. Out with that, these are the only ones that I'm aware of. Okay. Any other questions? Right. It's about from Louise. I have 2 questions about my support space. Are there any risks with diaries being used as evidence in court?
The diaries are kept entirely private, and we do put kind of information on there about what the things that they may or may not want to say in there. So we do give guidance around them, but no, they are entirely private. So. The trauma videos, we've kind of got a mix of videos that are and aren't available through that, but I'm sure we can do something, so I can pick up with you afterwards, Louise, as well, so to make that available to you. So.
Okay. I'm typing in a message that someone has sent to me. How do I know? And this is someone saying, well, there are apps out there. I'm looking at all, because although they follow similar principles, some of them they vary in different functions. And this person has said there seems to be a lot of apps out there. There are a few. How do I know if they went on to Google or the App Store? How would they know which would be the best apps for them? What would be suitable for their purpose? How does that victim get directed? Because as soon as they have apps, it's self-help. And I think that's quite an important question. I'm not sure I have the answer for that, to be honest. Has anyone got anything they want to feed into that question to help with this person who's asked it? No?
I'd say I think there's a point about when you're looking at any of the apps, is looking at who's providing them. You know, one of the issues you've got if you look at something like Android is it's fairly easy, I think, still for people to get apps onto that system. And so if you put, for instance, stalking in, there might be a lot of different things that come up. So I think it's a question of, firstly, of looking at who the provider is. You know, if you're looking at victim service providers, you know, they may well have across Europe, you know, have sort of links into apps that they recommend. For us on My Support Space, we have kind of links within each of the guides, so we sort of, you know, try and point towards sort of sites or resources that might be useful. But I think ultimately checking the source is the key thing, and being sure that the source is an appropriate one.
Yeah, I think that's thanks, Martin. I think that's makes a lot of sense. Anyone else get any feedback on that? Can I just add about the stalking app that we have, the Victim Impact Box app that we have here? It's one of the reasons we want to, because it is looking at stalking, it's focusing. We are a stalking charity. If we can engage with that victim quite early on, if that app directs them towards us, then we can look at what are the needs of the victim at that particular time, and then signpost them onto appropriate services, so that they might not be suitable for our service at that present moment, but we can then find the service that would be more suitable towards their needs. So we're being that go-to hub for them. So although they can connect with us, it doesn't mean that we're the right people for them. It just means we can assess that for the victim on their behalf. Any other thoughts, good questions coming in? I've got one here. Can everyone see it? In Australia, therapeutic communications between a victim of sexual assault and a therapist from discovering if a similar law is in other safeguard to protect a victim's privacy. Does anyone want to answer that?
There is guidance available in terms of pretrial therapy that exists. I mean, I think I've not got the details at hand to go into it, but there is sort of guidance available in the UK on it.
Okay. I hope that answered your question, Michael. It's quite a big field, and there's lots of different grey areas, and within that field, if you feel if you want more information, we can try and get that information for you, or direct you to the correct websites where that information will be made available to you. Did we answer Louise Kennedy's, who's a guest, about, so we've answered that one, haven't we? Yeah. I always say, if for anyone out there who is experiencing stalking or any other victimisation as a result of crime, when it's looking at diaries, is that we always advise to be careful what you do put into a diary if you don't want it being presented in court, or any risk of the defence having any indication of it, then not to put in anything that's too personal that would render you more vulnerable or give out personal information you might not want to share. So if you are presenting any of that into diaries, just be careful what you are sharing and understand who might have access to that information. Let me see, we've got another one here. It's over to yourself, Martin.
I'm not sure that is actually. It's how do you cover that VS cannot be held responsible for processing data about a third party, a picture in which the stalker is shown stored in the app. I think that's a question about the stalker app rather than My Support Space.
Maybe this is a question for Brigitte, since it also covers GDPR.
Which stalker app are we referring to?
I assume this is about the No Stalk app from VSEAnnualConference2020. Brigitte, you're mute.
I'm sorry. We did have a legal opinion on this topic on the impunity for users, and it is that it's only the user who is responsible for his data, and only the users has access to his personal data and no one else. And we also recommended the victims not to go too early to the police, that they have a certain number of stalking incidents recorded and then go to police. So if it is stalking, if it's really stalking, it's in Germany. I only can say it from the German law, not from Europe, but in Germany it is proved if your recorded data is only accessible by yourself, not even the VSEAnnualConference is not has no access to this data. And anyway, you have to document the stalking incidents somewhat, and it's really protected. It's in a security store. So it's even the police has developed the app together with us, and we also have feedback from the prosecutors and the police authorities. So it is proof. You can use it in court.
And can I support Brigitte with that as well in answering that, because I think that covers any app where a victim is uploading information into a secure server. It's the victim's information. That's what we make it very plain on our app. This is the victim's information, and what they load into that file, that protected file, that only they have the access code to. We don't upload information on behalf of the victim, and we don't store any information about who is a stalker or alleged stalker, because at the end of the day, we've got to be very careful, because it is until that person is proven guilty, we can't be seen to be holding information for someone who may be innocent. So we've got to be very careful in that matter. But it's what you said, it's the victim's information, and they are responsible for what they upload into their app, not the service provider per se.
Yeah, I think that's similar for My Support Space as well, though we do provide quite a bit of guidance in our sort of terms and conditions about what people should and shouldn't put in there.
All right. Any other questions from our participants, maybe our speakers?
I just want to say thank you. I've enjoyed that. Enjoyed hearing about all the other apps, all the other work that's being done. We're all trying to achieve the same ends and support these victims, and I think it's just wonderful to hear the different variations. But we're all at least providing resources for victims, which is excellent.
I definitely agree with you, Anne. And thank you for that. Thank you, Martin and Brigitta. If there are no more questions, then I would say we end it here. Thank you all for joining this conference. And I hope we all learned a lot about stalking apps and online support for victims. So if there are no more questions, let's end it here, and I wish you all a very pleasant afternoon. Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Bye-bye. Bye.